Alright, so I had quite a bit of fun doing the last video, so I was gonna try again, playing some snap poker this time, and let's see how far we get. Opening my Queen 10 suited, I guess it's kind of the bottom of the range. On that flop, I don't know, I guess I'm gonna call 10 because I get the price to call. And I can still turn a lot of cards that help me. 20 is too much. Yeah. So generally at 5 cent, 10 cent I would be stealing a lot from the button and the cutoff, and I would be 3-betting a lot. To counter the steals of my opponents, and there is quite a high fold to 3-bet at this level, so I would expect most of my 3-bets to be just effective in isolation, like without me having to take away a massive amount of hands post flop. Yeah, so. And then the second thing I'm going to do is I'm going to c-bet a lot to achieve the same thing as with my 3-bets to make people fold. This 40 cent is an unusual amount, and this guy seems to be a regular, so I'm slightly concerned, but because of what I just said, I'm going to be 3-betting with ace king suited. I guess thinking about it, there is a case for just calling, but now I gain more information now. Like if he has queens, kings, aces, I really expect a 4-bet. Yeah, I guess calling would be fine as well. So if he folds, I don't mind that, because he's folding out quite a bit of equity. Yeah, I guess calling can't be that bad either. Could have called. So I observe there are kind of two kinds of players here. The ones who are buying in for the full amount, like this guy and that guy, and who keep topping up. They tend to be playing more tightly and generally better, and then there tend to be the players who just buy in for a very little amount, and those are typically very passive. Well, the board is very dry, so I'm gonna try to take it away for a very low amount, expecting not to get exploited too much when I bet that little. When he calls, I don't see a lot of draws on the board, so I'm gonna expect him to have me beat a lot, but for 10 into 110 I can still call, hoping to hit my queen or maybe 6. Say if he has a 5 here, which seems pretty likely given that he's betting so low. Yeah, I can hit any of my 2 cards. Now it's a fold, of course. Yeah. I don't really know what he was up to. Like, why would he bet so low on the turn and then bump the river? Yeah, I don't know. So my standard is to raise 3x from the small blind, 2.5x from the button, and 3x from all the other positions, irrespective of whether I want a call or not, or yeah, if I'm stealing or not. Yeah, I think it would be a bit too exploitable otherwise. And also it's kind of hard to expect what kind of mindset the other people are in. Like, are they going to be more likely to call 25 or 30? I don't know. probably doesn't make a big difference to them. So 3-bets tend to be quite rare, so I'm giving up to a lot of 3-bets. Maybe there is a leak, especially when I'm not using a HUD and I don't really know who is the frequent 3-betters. There might be a bit of a leak, or quite a big leak, when I'm giving up so many 3-bets. And if you spot me doing that and then you raise me when I'm stealing, you can probably do it with any 2 cards and be profitable. So I guess I'm just hoping to spot the players who would do that frequently, and then maybe think about an adjustment, i.e. open fewer hands and 4-bet bluff some of the time. Okay, so regular again. I've got a decent hand to play post flop, and I'm calling, probably check raising that kind of board. Although he hasn't been c-betting too much from what I have seen. Now I'm trying to bet for value. Don't know if that's too thin. Don't know if I'm ever getting called by him with worse cards. But I guess there were some straight combinations there. Straight draw combinations. I don't know. I was just following my basic principle of betting when I think I'm ahead. So this hand is kind of okay to 3-bet with, and he is the kind of player that I would be attacking, and this is the kind of sizing that I would be attacking. Like for a lot of players this seems to be the steal size, 26 cents. Haven't really figured out why, especially that, but yeah, maybe it's something with the buttons here. If you press pot, maybe that's it, I don't know. So this board is it's not that likely that he has hit it, and I'm gonna c-bet. I think it's pretty standard c-bet, hoping to take it down, and I do. What could he have had? Quite a few of the better ace highs, broadways, pocket pairs. Obviously didn't hit the flush draw or the queen. Yeah, I think if it's a fit or fold type of opponent, meaning that if he deems the flop to have fit his hand, he's going to continue, and otherwise he's going to fold, then I think this c-bet is profitable in the long run. Board is really dry. Do I think I'm going to get called with worse? Because it's a blind v blind situation, I think yes. What is really worrying is that the calling range from the big blind tends to be skewed towards ace high type of hands. So now I'm calling like 80 to win 270. I think this is a fold. He just has the ace so often there. Although what he is representing is like 2-pair or aces with a good kicker, which I would expect him to 3-bet some of the time pre-flop. But yeah, with just my kings and no way to catch up, I think I'm folding that all the time. So he c-bets for half pot. I'm pretty confident that I've got the best hand here. Can't really raise though, because I'm not gonna get called by worse. 4 of spades I really don't like that much. And now on the river, I think I've got the best hand, but I don't think he can call me with worse, so I'm gonna check it to him, and yeah, I'm check calling the river to get him to bet into me. Don't know what he had. He had King Jack offsuit. Yeah, so I think this is a good example of where a weak sizing meant a weak hand. Which is very often the case here. So he bet half pot on the flop and was c-betting, yeah, without a hand and without a draw. That's what I'm trying to exploit. So if I consider whether or not I want to check raise, for example, I would be waiting for a spot where my opponent is c-betting something like half pot on a dry board where it's not that likely that he has hit. Those would be the first kind of spots that I'm attacking. And the same goes for pre-flop. I would be attacking only the spots where someone is opening from a kind of stealing position with a normal or kind of smallish sizing. Pretty sure my ace high is better than whatever he has, but I don't want to get too much money in out of position pre-flop. Yeah, my hand is just not strong enough. 9-7 suited. Yeah, I was thinking King Deuce offsuit is kind of too junky to be stealing from the cutoff, even though there were my favorite nitty players in the blinds, like who fold all the time. But yeah, I don't think it's a steal. Yeah. I'm gonna be calling with my 8s. It's too good to get rid of right now, and I don't want to be 3-betting because I can't continue on too many flops. So he min-bet and now he's betting this much. I'm gonna call the c-bet. Now his sizing was kind of big, which has me a little bit worried, but I think he should be c-betting often enough such that my 8s are a profitable call. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's okay. And right now ace-10 is the bottom of my range under the gun. Yeah, maybe ace-9 suited if I feel funky. Okay. Kind of beginner player, recreational player opening for 3x. I don't think I can take it away too much out of position. Just a typical steal spot with any ace high, king high, I guess any queen high from the button, if there are those players. Well, based on the type of player that is in the big blind, I think it's acceptable to limp here, because he's not buying in for the full amount, so I'm expecting the passive recreational player type, so he's not going to be raising pretty much ever, and yeah, so I'm kind of closing the action when I'm limping from the small blind. It's a marginal thing. I guess I'm not getting too much value from out of position with that type of hand. Oh man, really don't know. Of course my ace high could be good. From my experience. I don't know. I can't interpret that kind of min bet. Don't know what's going on. Would call in position, out of position is too bad. So maybe you can argue if I play that way post flop, then I shouldn't even bother to call the min bet pre flop. Yeah, I don't think it's too big of a deal, but yeah, I guess I would be folding sometimes pre-flop. Alright. So he's donking me for half pot. It's kind of suspicious, but I don't have the hand to continue. I feel that those half-pot donks are pretty polarized, like they either have a strong hand or they have no hand at all. So you can find out what they're up to by raising a small amount. But with the hand that I had, I feel really uncomfortable continuing when I get called. So I didn't wanna pull that move this time, but I would definitely be raising the half pot donk quite a bit. My two pair bet for value, of course. Board was very drawy. Now the king might be a scare card to him, and it doesn't offer too many draw possibilities, so I'm gonna bet low, assuming that he doesn't feel too confident about his hand now. And hope he calls me with a draw on the turn. This hand I would steal from the small blind, gets raised, so I get rid of it. Yeah, so those kinds of bets from the cutoff would be something that I would be attacking with a 3-bet. Ace-5 offsuit I don't think is good enough. I'm not an expert on 3-betting pre-flop. I don't know. I don't know what the 3-bet fold ratio is. I don't have a HUD. And I'm just gonna stick with the obvious spots. I wasn't stealing that time because the big blind had just like 40 cents left, and I don't want to go all in with 10-8. Because I think it's not beating the average hand. I think the average hand is like King 4. Offsuit, don't really know. Right, that hand isn't good enough. That's the steal from the small blind. Okay, now it isn't. We've got a limper, a raiser. Raise is really small. Could argue that I get the price to call, but Playing from the small blind, it's really hard to extract value because I'm acting first and I don't know what the people after me are doing, so it gets risky betting for thin value. Say if I have top pair, yeah, I'm gonna bet the flop, but then if the turn breaks, am I gonna bet the turn again? And with my 10 kicker, I don't know. I don't think I'm getting enough value from the small blind to justify a call there. Yeah. So I'm ISO raising my 10 jack offsuit. Expect him to have a lot of pairs, him to have pairs and some ace high type of hands. This board seems okay to c-bet. Yeah, actually I'm gonna c-bet 57, not too much. Board is dry enough to do this. My hand hasn't connected to the board well enough. Now that it paired and the top card paired, this will make him feel a lot more confident about a pair of fives. I could bluff to get flush draws to fold. Okay, so now this is kind of interesting. How does he have a 5 or a king here? He could have some busted flush draws that he's betting out with. Okay, what I said before the hand was that I suspect him to have quite a few pairs. I don't know. I don't know what he turns up there with. I just know that I ain't beating it. Typical mid logic, I guess. But it would be hard for me to represent a hand there when I've bet half pot on the flop, check the turn, and then why would I be betting the river? I obviously don't, I don't have a 5 because the 5 would bet the turn, I think. Anyways, so similar kind of flop seems alright to see that. Get called, turn increases the amount of draws. So either I'm gonna fire turn and river, or I'm gonna give up. I guess I'm gonna fire because the flush draw hands fold on the turn and now the river breaks and I pretty much have to bluff with my hand because I don't expect to be good ever. It's possible that he had a draw, but I can't check. Like, from a normal opponent, I would expect a bet either way. Like, if he has a king, he's betting for value. If he had a draw, he's bluffing. So I can't check call because then he's value betting all the time against me. So, like, it's going to be a tough spot if I decide to check the river and then make a decision. I think it's much better to bluff. Okay, I was talking. Don't know what happened in that hand. Somehow I had TPTK and was value betting. I don't know. Just autopilot. Alright. It's time for an ISO raise. This guy is kind of short, but even when he calls I expect to be ahead. And yeah, I want to get it heads up to the flop and then get a lot of value when I hit. Board is really dry. I wonder if I can check back, but how much is he going to be firing? Is he gonna be calling me with worse than a pair of nines? Probably not. I mean, the disadvantage of checking is that he can outdraw me because there are so many overcards possible to my 9. But yeah, I guess I don't get called by worse on the flop. So now do I bet for value? I went check call, check call. Yeah, I think I bet for value. Just bet him low. Because he bought in for a low amount, so I expect a passive player that is calling a lot. And I think he is actually capable of calling with a 6 once I check the flop. But I have to admit it's a very thin value bet, so yeah. Maybe not the greatest thing of all times. Well, I'm pretty sure I'm beating his range. Don't want anyone else to come along. But I don't want to reshove because it's so much more behind. If I shove this, and yeah. I was just going to call and then fold 2 raises from the other 2 players. Okay, so this seems to be one of the kind of regular guys. I was calling intending to check raise a few flops, but now that I made top pair, the plan has changed. I'm just gonna call, and then on the turn, what could he have been betting with? Well, his whole range, because the board was dry. The turn is kind of the defining factor of what he has, and he doesn't seem to have a king. If I check here, is he gonna bet a queen? Probably not. Is he gonna bet a 10? Probably not. I'm gonna lead to get called by those hands, and yeah, I don't think he would try to bluff because I called on a very dry flop. So yeah, it just doesn't seem like a good idea for him to bluff the river when I check to him. So I'm gonna bet low, hoping to get called by a queen. Okay. That's the problem with betting low, I guess. You get raised some of the time. So he bet the flop, checked the turn, and then bet the river. What does he have? There is some straight possibility, but I didn't think he was gonna have a flush, because I would expect him with the flush draw to bet on the turn, right? Okay. Let's take a break to have a look at this again. What happened, and especially what happened with the sizing. So I make it 66. He makes it 230. That was a big raise, wasn't it? That was like 3.4. No. 3.8. Something like that. 3.8x. That's a very big raise. Okay, so pre-flop he opened from the button. I expect him to steal a lot. The flop, his range has all of the cards from his pre-flop range because he's just c-betting. The turn he checks, so that tells me he doesn't have a king. Could be checking a queen in order to call a bet from me on the river. And apparently he could be checking a flush draw, although, well, I personally would always bet a flush draw on the turn, but apparently it's possible to check. That's unfortunate. I don't know. Yeah. I guess what happened was that by betting so low on the river, I'm aware that this is exploitable because he could just raise me and I have to fold a lot. So I guess I leveled myself into calling this way, which is kind of, yeah, which is not the logic which I want to apply. Might have been better to say that I believe the big bets, especially on the river, especially at this kind of level, and if repeatedly an opponent is aggressive against me, then maybe I can make an adjustment by calling him off, but like this, it's probably not a call on the river. Okay. Unfortunate. Yeah. It's very much not a call. Alright. How's a limp pot? Trying to semi-bluff this. Not too big because, yeah, I'm actually not ahead equity wise, so I'm just trying to take it down cheaply. Seems like a steal to me. It's a pretty dry board. Could I be betting low? No, I don't think. There's gonna be a lot of hands that call me when I bet low. Because they can't outdraw the ace. So now I'm gonna bet something like this. So try to get called by any ace, any king. Some flush draws, maybe. Depends on how fishy my opponent is. Yeah. Well, he better doesn't have a flush draw, because then I'm kind of screwed. Do we think he has an ace? The majority of the time he's gonna have king x combinations. I don't know, running out of time. Bet something because I have 3 of a kind. I guess for the king x combinations I could have bet lower. not running so hot, I guess. Yeah. Okay, we are out of here. I'm just looking for a good hand to finish this video, because I want to go out on a high. Yeah, maybe I can pick up a pot or something like that to finish it off. Alright. I might check calling this flop. No, I think I'm check folding. I don't want to c-bet because I get called so much. Yeah, because in blind v blind people expect me to be aggressive, and the flop had quite a few draws on it. Four offsuit, don't expect him to raise. I could go either way. Can call, can fold. It's pretty much the same thing. Don't really expect to be called by worse when I bet. So I'm going to try to see if I can get to showdown. Alright. Ace 5 off. Looks like a steal to me. Is it an ISO raise? Probably not. I could have ISO raised, but the post-flop playability of that hand is not too great, and he's gonna be, yeah, he's gonna be flipping against me most of the time, and then some of the time he has me dominated. This was limped, right? Made a flush. Let's hope for him to bet. Okay, he isn't even value betting the jack, that's weird. I would have called on the river, because people tend to bluff the flush. And it's not actually that likely. Like, it's actually quite hard to have a flush there. Because, you know, apart from the cards that I'm seeing, there are 8 other diamonds in the deck. And by experience, people bluff more often than they could have the diamond. Seems like an acceptable flop to c-bet for me. Very uncoordinated board. So when he calls, he has quite a few queens that wouldn't bet if I check now, so I'm gonna bet again, hoping that the blind v blind dynamic makes him call me. Apparently not. Could of course have had any pair, any 9. Yeah. Very dry board. Wondering what size to c-bet. I'm just gonna choose the 3/4. Kind of depends on, say he has a 9 or a 5. It depends on whether or not he realizes that I don't have an ace that often in my range, because I'm stealing. So if he realizes that, then he's calling, and if he doesn't, then it doesn't really matter how much I bet. He's always going to fold the ace high flop. I guess it's enough. It's gonna be a very long video otherwise. And it's gonna take ages to compile, so I'm gonna finish after this hand, running it even for 40 minutes, I guess. Yeah, but the main point was to play a few hands, maybe get a bit of feedback on the most blatant mistakes that I'm making. Alright. Yeah. So that's that.